Jack Holden, a journalist for a small local newspaper, was tired of the same old stories, tired of chasing nothing. His phone buzzed on the desk, a new email. First, he ignored it, but something about the subject line caught his eye. A murder will happen tomorrow. He opened the message. It was short and strange. At 3 p.m. tomorrow, someone will die at the old warehouse on 4th Street. The victim is someone close to you. Be careful. Jack frowned. The email was anonymous, no sender name, no other details. Just the chilling prediction. He stared at the screen. Could be a prank, or it could be real. He leaned back in his chair, unsure of what to do. But one thing was clear, he couldn't ignore it. The next morning, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He tried to forget about the email, but the words kept echoing in his mind. A murder at 3 p.m.? It didn't make sense. He decided to check the warehouse on 4th Street. Maybe he'd find something that could explain the strange message. He pulled up his laptop and searched for any news about the place. Nothing. No reports, no police alerts, nothing about a crime. Jack frowned. The more he looked, the less he found. But the email's warning wouldn't leave him alone. At noon, he made a decision. He'd go to the warehouse himself. Even if it turned out to be a prank, he had to know for sure. Jack arrived at the warehouse just before 2 p.m. It looked abandoned, with broken windows and old, rusty doors. He parked his car nearby, feeling uneasy. As he stepped out, his phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. This one was even more urgent. It's almost time. The victim is someone you know. If you don't act now, it will be too late. Jack's heart raced. Was it true? Was this real? His mind raced through the people he knew, trying to figure out who could be in danger. He glanced at the clock. 2:30 p.m. Only 30 minutes left. He had to find out what was happening before it was too late. The clock ticked closer to 3 p.m. Jack walked around the warehouse, looking for anything that could explain the message. The place was silent, too silent. He checked his phone again. Nothing. No new messages. No signs of anyone else. Then a noise. A door creaked open at the back of the warehouse. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He rushed toward the sound, but stopped when he saw a shadow moving inside. He was too late. A figure emerged, holding something in their hands. Jack froze, his breath caught in his throat. The murder was happening right in front of him. The figure in the shadows stepped forward, and Jack could see the weapon. An old knife, glinting in the dim light. But it wasn't the victim Jack expected. The person on the ground wasn't anyone he knew. It was a stranger, someone he'd never seen before. The murderer, however, seemed strangely familiar. Before Jack could act, the killer turned and disappeared into the darkness, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Jack rushed to the victim, but it was too late. He pulled out his phone and called 911. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The anonymous tip had been right about the time, but wrong about everything else. Who was behind this? And why had they led him here? Jack sat on the ground, staring at the body of the stranger, his heart pounding in his chest. The police arrived minutes later, taking over the scene. They didn't ask him many questions. He wasn't a suspect, just a witness. But they couldn't explain what had happened either. As the officers worked, Jack couldn't stop thinking about the anonymous tip. Who sent it? And why did they warn him about the murder? The killer had disappeared without a trace, and the victim was someone he'd never seen before. Everything felt wrong. He left the scene and went back to his car, his mind in a fog. As he sat there, he opened his phone again, expecting to see a new message. But there was nothing. No more tips, no more warnings. Jack wondered if the tipster had been trying to help him stop the murder, or if they had simply wanted him to witness it. Either way, they had been right about one thing. Time had run out. As he drove home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was part of something bigger than just a random crime. The tip, the strange timing, the vanishing killer, it all felt planned, calculated. When he arrived at his apartment, Jack locked the door behind him and sat at his desk. He typed up the details of what happened, but stopped midway through. What was the point? Who would believe a story with so many unanswered questions? Jack leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. He had no answers, just a feeling that the mystery wasn't over. Someone had been watching him, guiding him, or maybe even manipulating him. And somehow, Jack knew that this story wasn't finished. It was only just beginning. The tipster had promised that a murder would happen, and Jack had seen it with his own eyes. But who would be next? And what was the real reason behind it all? The phone remained silent, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, and somewhere someone knew the truth.